news tonight because U.S. Southern Command just announced another strike on an alleged drug trafficking boat, this time in the Eastern Pacific. That's what you're watching here, this video that they released today of this strike. The military says that this boat was carrying drugs, and they allege that 4 men on board had been killed as a result of this strike. This is all coming, though, as Congress is now investigating the video of the very first of what is now the total of 23 strikes on these suspected and alleged drug boats. The commander who led that initial mission is now under major scrutiny, and he was on Capitol Hill today to brief lawmakers who have been demanding answers about what happened and when. Admiral Frank Bradley was joined today by the Joint Chiefs Chairman, Dan Kane, and the Secretary of Defense has asserted that the Admiral is the one who made the call for a follow-up strike that day, targeting the survivors who were in the water after the initial strike. The military brass was taking questions behind closed doors from lawmakers, but CNN has exclusive reporting tonight from sources with direct knowledge of those briefings that the Admiral told them that the 2 survivors in the water did not appear to have radio or other communications devices. That matters because defense officials that we've been hearing from have been quietly arguing that the survivors were legitimate targets because they appeared to be radioing for help or backup, reinforcements that could theoretically allow them to have continued to traffic the drugs that were on board that boat. However, despite that, and according to our new reporting here at CNN tonight from my colleagues, Admiral Bradley today acknowledged that those 2 survivors were in no position to make a distress call. The level of satisfaction with these answers that lawmakers got today seemed to depend, though, on whether or not they were Democrats or Republicans.
What I saw in that room was one of the most troubling things I've seen in my time in public service.
They were exactly what we'd expect our military commanders to do. I didn't see anything disturbing about it.
I have more policy questions than ever about the framing of the mission, the rules of engagement.
My source tonight is the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, Congressman Adam Smith of Washington. What did you see on that video today that you can tell us tonight?
Well, it's disturbing on 2 levels. First, I agree with Senator Kearns. The overall mission. What is the war that we are fighting here, and what are the rules of engagement? Because if it's a war, it's one thing. If it's not, it's a different thing. And the whole underpinning of the entire mission is in question. And this only raises those questions further. And on this specific second strike, we got a lot of bad information from Secretary Hegseth. I remember, first of all, he said fake news didn't happen. This well, it happened, but he took the shot. It was the fog of war. We couldn't see. It's very, very clear in this video, which, by the way, should be made public. You had 2 shipwrecked people on the top of the tiny little bit of the boat that was left, that was capsized. The bow. They weren't signaling to anybody. And the idea that these 2 were going to be able to return to the fight, even if you accept all of the questionable legal premises around this mission, around these strikes, it's still very hard to imagine how these 2 were returning to any sort of fight in that condition.
So you could easily see the survivors?
Yes. Yes. Now, there were times, this video played out over an extended period of time. There was roughly 48 minutes between the first strike and the second strikes. They used 3 missiles the second time. In those 48 minutes, sometimes there was a cloud cover and the drones weren't there. But at the time of the strike, you could clearly see the 2 people on the boat.
And they weren't calling, radioing in, anything like that?
I mean, if they had a radio device on them, it must have been really small, because it sure wasn't apparent from looking at the video, and they certainly did not appear to be signaling to anybody.
Can you square that with Senator Tom Cotton saying that they were trying to flip a boat that was loaded with drugs over, that was bound for the United States? Is that what you saw?
That's patently ridiculous. I mean...
That's not true in your view.
Gosh, Admiral Bradley didn't even pretend that that was the case. There was no way they were turning this boat back over. The boat was completely disabled, and Admiral Bradley admitted that. It was drifting with the current. It was going to go wherever the current was going to take them. And I don't know, I didn't see all 48 minutes between the first and second strike, maybe for the first 10, but it appears that the boat was split at least in half. I mean, there was this tiny little bit of the bow that was still, capsized. So they weren't trying to flip anything over, first of all. Second of all, there is the claim that the drugs still could have been there. There's no real evidence of that. You see the first strike, boat's on fire, flips over, maybe in that tiny portion of the boat. But that's speculation, and it certainly wasn't clear from the video.
So those 2 survivors are floating on that small part of the boat that's left over.
Right.
Did he explain why they struck those survivors?
Yes. Because he was arguing two things. One, that it was possible that the drugs, which were the target from this in the first place, were still there. Two, somebody could have helped them and helped them carry out their mission. Now, they didn't see any other boat. They didn't see any other plane. It was just sort of possible. And the argument was they were in a position to potentially return to, quote, the fight. And that's where we get back to the original question. What is the fight? In Iraq and Afghanistan, they were shooting at us. They were trying to blow us up. It's very clear what the fight was. Here, they're trying to ship cocaine somewhere. We're not even sure that it was going to the U.S., by the way. I mean, that's a pretty broad definition of a fight that gives the president and secretary of defense lethal authority over a lot of people without any due process.
So based on today's briefing, was that second strike justified?
That's a legal conclusion. I have big questions about whether or not it was justified. I'm not willing to say, yeah, that was unjustified, this is a war crime, but what I will tell you is this demands much more investigation, much more transparency to get those answers, to get greater clarity on what the rules of engagement were and how they applied in this particular circumstance. This did not set that issue to rest.
You said at times there was cloud cover, but when Secretary Hegseth said the other day that it was fog of war, is that how you would characterize what you saw today? That's
idiotic, okay? I mean, I understand the fog of war. People are shooting at you. You see a guy, okay, you blew up the vehicle they're in. Are they armed? We had video for 48 minutes of two guys hanging off the side of a boat, all right? There was plenty of time to make a clear and sober analysis. I don't think Admiral Bradley would disagree with that. There was no, oh my gosh, we're in a hurry. Is there a car bomb? Is it going to hit us? No. Two guys floating on a capsized piece of a boat in the middle of the ocean.
Did he argue it was self-defense? That's the other thing that we have heard from the White House.
Self-defense of what? I mean, the extended argument is these guys were trafficking cocaine. It is conceivable that that cocaine still existed, might have wound up in the U.S., and then might have caused some harm, but is so attenuated. I've already made that point, so I won't make it again, but yeah, it's a real stretch.
You want the video released publicly?
Absolutely. There's nothing classified about that video. The OLC memo, the Office of Legal Counsel memo justifying this whole thing, which is nonsensical if you read it, ought to be made public.
And you want Secretary Hegseth to testify?
Absolutely. And also dumping this on Admiral Bradley, completely wrong. This is Secretary Hegseth's mission. He's out there talking tough about everything, saying he doesn't have to obey the law in many instances, putting the service members on the front line of this. Secretary Hegseth ought to own this. It is his choice, his call. He's the one who did this, and President Trump. That's the civilian leadership that drove this.
How did Admiral Bradley come across today?
Very respectable. I mean, it was challenging. It was Senator Reid, Congressman Rogers, and Senator Wicker in the room, and Jack Reed and I in particular were very challenging. He's a smart, respectful guy, good at his job. I have a problem with that. I have serious questions about the judgment on this particular decision, but it was a good conversation.
I think my question is, listening to what you had to say, what Jim Himes had to say, what Senator Cotton had to say, is how did Democrats and Republicans watch the same video and come out with two very different takeaways?
Well, let me just say, in this factual situation, what I heard Senator Cotton say, even Admiral Bradley wouldn't agree with that. This idea that they were active, they were radioing for help, they were getting ready to turn the boat back over. As I said, that's patently absurd based on the video. All right. Now, if you want to come out and say, look, screw drug dealers. They should be killed anywhere, any place, anytime, no due process, no nothing. They're just that bad. We can't take the chance. Okay, make that argument. Let's have that conversation. But throughout this process, they've been making stuff up. Remember, again, oh, it didn't happen, never happened. Oh, what happened but fog of war, we couldn't see anything. Oh, they're trying to turn the boat over. Oh, they were communicating. All those things turned out to be lies. And keep in mind, Caitlin, they had this video, all right? They weren't guessing. They could see clearly what happened, and they were spreading a story that was clearly untrue. And if it wasn't for the Washington Post, we wouldn't even be having this conversation because they were trying to suppress it and not allow it to be public.
Congressman Adam Smith, we will see what happens next here and if there is a public hearing into this. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.